Garry Kasparov sacrifices his queen and both his rooks in this match, and only to go on to win the match against Kramnik. So let's see how he does that. And this is the Sicilian that is on the board, and Kasparov is playing with the white pieces, and Kramnik is playing with the black pieces. So this is Sicilian defense chameleon variation, it's a close variation. And after the knight to f6 move, the pawn to d4 is played by Kasparov, attacking that Sicilian pawn. So the pawns get captures, and the knight takes back the pawn. And after that, the pawn push to e5, making this the last Karpelkian variation of the Sicilian defense. So the knight under attack goes to b5, and the pawn push of d6 complete this pawn structure in the center for black, for Kramnik. And after that, the bishop goes to g5 by Kasparov, pinning that knight, and after that a6 by Kramnik, pushing the knight away, and the knight retreats to a3, and immediately b5 is played. Usual queenside attack, but there's an intent to push your pawn further to b6, forking both these knights at the same time. So the knight jumped to d5, and because of the pin here, this knight cannot capture the knight back, and it cannot capture this pawn absel because your queen will be gone. So the bishop now comes to e7, covering that knight, and the bishop captures the knight, and the bishop captures the knight back. So now this pawn push c3 allows this knight to retrieve to a good square if this and to rearrange the knight later on. Kramnik castles on the king side, and knight to c2 by Kasparov to that intended square, and for which the pawn move was made. And the and the rook now goes to b8 now, and into the, and after that h4 by Kasparov, looking to attack on the king side as well. You can see that Kasparov is still uncastled as of this move, and knight now goes to e7 here. So this is actually a mistake, because this allows Kasparov to capture this bishop which was undefended, and you will have to capture back with your pawn here, which create this double pawn and also an exposed king. So Kasparov immediately places his queen to d2 with the intent of going into this particular h6 square, going for the attack. So the bishop now comes to b7, and Kasparov brings his bishop to d3, supporting that pawn which was under attack, and d5, the pawn push in the center. So the pawns get captured, and the queen captures the pawn back. So after that, Kasparov castles on the queen side as of the 18th move, very late castling, and e4 by Kramnik now attacking that particular bishop. So the bishop moves, so this allows this pawn to be taken. Kasparov allows this pawn to be taken, and so he immediately brings his queen to h6, attacking this weak doubled up pawn over here. So Kramnik brought his queen back to e6, and now the knight goes to d4, attacking the queen, and the queen goes to b6, and the rook now comes into action, looking to attack that particular king over there in the next move. So the king moves away from creating any checks and any forced moves, so the king moves to h8, a little bit safer square. So the bishop now moves to g4 into an attacking position, and now the rook goes to g8, attacking the bishop, and Kasparov just plays knight to e6. Actually, this is not a great move. I don't know what he calculated. I couldn't see anything, because after the rook comes to g6, you will be forced to withdraw your queen to f4 here, leaving the knight hanging. But Kramnik didn't capitalize on this mistake of Kasparov, and he places his rook to e8, because once the queen came in here, your rook is under attack. Yes, the rook need to be defended, but instead of moving the rook here, he could have just brought his bishop here. Then this queen will be supporting this rook over here, and you will have to move your knight back, and the game and in fact black Kramnik would have an advantage, but because of the rook move, Kasparov have a huge advantage in this position. So he utilizes it, bringing his rook to d6, attacking the queen, and instead of protecting his queen, Kramnik plays knight to d5, attacking the Kasparov's queen back. So here Kasparov ignores to attack this ignore this attack, and pushes his pawn to h5, attacking the rook instead. Kramnik goes and accepts this queen, so he takes the queen first, and Kramnik then takes his rook instead. But Kasparov takes the rook instead, and Kramnik but takes the rook back with his queen. So he's down by a queen, and Kasparov plays his first force move, a check, and the king had to move. And once the king moved, the pawn captures the pawn with a check, and it's a fork here, and your rook is hanging. But if you take the rook, before that, this rook is of Kasparov is also hanging. So Kramnik take that rook, and now the rook is taken, and the queen is back on the board. Now this knight is captured by Kramnik with his knight, and Kasparov brings his bishop to f5 with a check first, and immediately the king had to go to g7 here. So the queen now comes to g6 and places another check, and after that the king goes to f8, and now this pawn is also taken by Kasparov. For the now the king, because it's a check, the king had to move. You cannot close the check, and which allows this knight to be taken back. So as of this position, Kasparov is just up by a pawn. But after this move, this Kramnik plays queen to f8 here. Then Kasparov plays this brilliant move, bishop to d7 check, and as of this position, Kramnik resigns the game, because if the king do not have anywhere else to go, because all these squares are covered by the queen and the bishop as well, and bishop is delivering the check, and the only square, the queen is here as well. There is nothing this queen can do to cover this bishop. So the king had to take. So once the king takes, the queen is gone, and Kasparov is up in the game by a queen. Yes, the bishop is there, but you can say he's up by a queen. So that's why Kramnik resigned the match, and um, uh, uh, Kasparov calculated his queen and rook sacrifices brilliantly to bring his queen back on the board, but it was still an equal game until that point. Yes, Kasparov had a slight advantage, but after the bishop move and that queen move, that game was over for Kramnik basically. So that was the match. So I hope you enjoyed this game. A lot of sacrifices by Kasparov to get and bringing his queen back on the board by pushing this g4 with this g4 pawn was truly incredible. I've never seen any game like that as of now. So thanks very much for watching. We'll be back with more such videos.